Good evening and welcome to the May 12th, 2015 School Committee meeting. We're happy to have you join us. This meeting is being recorded by Easthampton Public Access Cable. The School Committee would like to recognize and thank Tim Riley for taping tonight's production. Easthampton Public Access Cable Station Channels 5, 19, and 20 is looking for volunteers. If anyone is interested in helping to tape city government meetings, please contact Kathy Lynch at 413-203-1360. Superintendent Follinsby, do you have some announcements for us?
I do. The next school committee meetings are June 9th and June 23rd. The meetings will begin at 6:30. The Special Education Parent Advisory Council will meet on the following dates in the conference room on the second floor at 50 Payson Avenue, May 13th and June 10th. There's no school on Monday, May 25th due to Memorial Day, and at this time the last day of school is scheduled for Wednesday, June 24th. And we have a number of events occurring in our schools in these last 2 months of school, and I'm going to read a few of them here this evening so you're all aware of what's available to you to participate in. At Center Pepin, there's an all-school gallery night on May 14th. There's a kindergarten tour on May 15th. A fourth grade visit to White Brook Middle School on May 27th. The ice cream social and art show on June 4th. An all-school chorus performance at Pepin, or for Pepin, on June 10th, and an all-school chorus performance for Center school students on June 11th. At Maple, we have the fourth grade visit to White Brook Middle School on May 26th, the art show and ice cream social on June 4th, poetry reading in grade 4 on June 5th, all-school theme show, Quest Enrichment Program presentation on June 10th. The rain date is June 18th. Preschool last day of school celebration is June 18th. American Heroes Wax Museum is put on by the fourth grade is June 19th. Kindergarten last day of school celebration is June 23rd. The grade 3 recorder concert is June 23rd. The grade 4 field trip to Mount Tom Moving Up ceremony, June 23rd. I bet they're looking forward to that. Science night, June 23rd. At White Brook Middle School, we have a band concert on May 21st, an 8th grade trip to Washington, D.C. From May 26th to the 29th, a chorus concert on June 4th. The Quest Enrichment Program presentations are June 8th. The awards night is June 17th. The in-school drama play and semi-formal is June 18th. The talent show is June 23rd. The continuation is June 23rd. And the 8th grade breakfast is June 24th. And there are a number of activities also happening at the high school, but I'm going to wait until our high school representative, Brian Atwater, does his report, and then he'll report to you on the science events.
Thank you so much for sharing all those activities with us. It's great to know what's going on in all the schools.
Yeah,
so
there's a lot going on. My pleasure.
Okay, moving on. Correspondence.
Give me one. No, we do not have any correspondence. No.
Okay, and gifts.
Nor do we have any
gifts
gifts
this week. Okay. At this time, we invite anyone in the audience to come and speak to us that might want to speak to us on any topic. Doesn't look as though anyone's here to do that, so we'll move on to our Finance Subcommittee report.
The Finance Subcommittee met last Tuesday, May 5th. The minutes will be in your next packet at our full committee meeting. We talked about the fiscal year that's ending, and we're looking at hopefully having about $45,000 rolling over. They're still crunching those numbers with open purchase orders and that kind of stuff. We usually have about $300,000 rollover, but because of the sped cost that we had to use this year's school choice, which we usually save, there's that gap there. So we're looking at next year's FY16 about $342,000 deficit, and how to handle that is still being worked on. We talked about a few things that the full committee wanted us to talk about coming out of our work sessions. Gift recognition is something we're going to hopefully have a list compiled at the end of each calendar year, so in December, and we brainstormed a few ideas about what to do with that list once we have it. how to get that out into the community and recognize those people that help us out all year long. The stipend, there was another question about when exactly those come out, and Andy said he can do June and January, no problem, so that's what it'll be. Subsidizing field trips, we discussed briefly, but looking at the $342,000 deficit, it didn't warrant further discussion at this time. And the last thing was something that's coming up in front of the City Council regarding the health insurance for retired teachers. I'm looking at you because these guys are all there. And moving it from the city to the school department budget, and how that would affect the net school spending numbers this year and going into the future. And we had talked about sending a letter to the City Council Finance Subcommittee, just weighing in on how we feel about that. And it comes today because I think the idea was, should it come from the Finance Subcommittee, or if we could have a full discussion about it, would it be more effective to have it come from the full school committee? And I think the sense we got in the subcommittee meeting was that it wasn't the best idea for us going forward. And Deb was talking about maybe drafting a letter on behalf of all of us. I don't know if you want to speak to that further.
So that was the plan, is that if everyone was in agreement, that I would draft a letter on behalf of the school committee expressing our thoughts on the matter and recommending that that change not be made for our city going forward, so that the retired teachers' insurance money would stay on the city side and not be moved to the school department budget. So I just wanted to get a quick sense from everybody. The Finance Subcommittee agreed on all of that, so I just wanted to make sure the full committee did agree, and then I would go ahead and draft that letter.
Can I just back up? So how did this come about? Why is this coming out of the city council? Why are they asking to have it put on our...
Karen, do you want to explain?
I was just going to say, do you want to take this, Dan, or do you want me to shed a little insight?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, this is a legislative move. That's why it's in front of the city council as the legislative body. And this came to the finance director's attention, and she put it on sent it to the city council for them to review it. By not providing it to them, it would be her or the city answering it as a no. It can only, this is a switch on reporting retirees' health insurance. Instead of reporting it as a non-net item, reporting it as a net item, and it can only be done in June. It has a June deadline, and after that, it's void. So they've had it on their agenda for a while, and they've been kind of going back and forth with it. And they brought it to the full council and felt that the school committee wanted to weigh in on it, and so brought it back to finance. And I think, knowing that you probably would put draft a letter together from the committee, and they would take it into consideration and then bring it back to the full council. It's legislative, so it doesn't need a public hearing. And if you want to get into the details about it, there's 127 communities that do it the way that we do it now, as non-net. The rest of the 351 communities use it as net. And I have a funny feeling that this is a little kind of sad but true. There were, when I started here, so in 94, 96, and probably 98, there were only 2 communities in the state that did not have retiree insurance, and we were one of them. So that was after the selection of using it as net or non-net. So it's come around again, and it's come around for a specific purpose. It's come around to help communities that are having a hard time meeting the state mandated school requirements, and it's very sad that that happens, but there are communities that just can't meet the mandated amount. And by moving non-net to net, which is just school retirees health insurance, might help some of the communities meet the mandated amount versus getting fined, because they haven't fined them in the last 4 years, but that's why they brought this legislation around again, so that communities that are not complying would be able to hopefully be able to comply. For us in our district, I think it's about $500,000. That would be the difference. So when you look at our figures, the other things that are not changing on the non-net, things like transportation, the non-net was always made for non-people items, transportation or building costs, things like that. So, okay. Any questions, or was that too much, too long?
No, thank you.
So it's sad in many ways because
It's
these
very
communities
sad.
that are making the change, they're
It's-
adding zero value for instructional services. And it's just an accounting change that actually allows them to potentially even be designating less for instructional services for their schools.
Right, and it's very sad for communities that they are not meeting the state mandated amount for their
minimum
schools. It's very
requirement.
sad, and then finding them when they can't afford to make make the net amount almost seems a little bit ridiculous. But what we want to do, and I have been over this 100 times with with any discussion, is that this is in no way, shape, or form meant to be, if first of all, it wouldn't be part of our fiscal 16 budget, and if by any chance it were approved, it goes in stages of 4 years, 25%, 25%, well, you can get the rest. So it would take 4 years for it to be effective, starting in fiscal 17. So obviously, when you look at a community like ours, and you look at the fact that we're struggling, but we're providing over almost close to 900,000 over the state mandated amount. I think it speaks clearly what we feel about school excellence. So there's discussions on both sides. It's an issue that needs to be looked at, and I can tell you that finance has been going over this many times and is having a lot of discussion on it, and is well aware, and they wanted to hold it for further input from the other counselors and from and from the school committee.
So our concern as a school committee going forward would be that down the road, the city legally would be required to give us less and less money for instructional services. And that money for the retired insurance, teachers' insurance, would be counting toward the money they need to provide us. And so it would therefore be a decrease in our instructional services funds from the city. So as a school committee, we're really quite concerned about that for the future. Certainly not for the present with our current administration, but we don't know who our leadership will be for the city down the road and what their priorities would or wouldn't be. And so we would like to try to protect the way the accounting is structured now so as to protect that money for instructional services.
And what Deb is saying about the accounting is right on target. So just use this year, if we provided 900 over, if this again would be the 4 years from now, actually 5 years from now, but if we provided the 900,000 over the mandated amount, that extra 5, approximately 5 for the teachers' retiree insurance would have been added to it, so it would in essence look like we had 1.4
million
over the mandated
Right.
amount. So you could, you've got it.
I do, thank you.
We could have taken a $1.4 million hit from our city appropriations to our budget this year.
No.
Under a different administration. I'm saying hypothetically. I understand it doesn't impact
Right,
us totally.
and again, from this administration, we're looking at it, and again, current administration, finance director, the whole finance team is looking at it as just a recording method. It's just a recording method to them. So, under this administration,
Right.
I can assure you.
So what I was just wondering is if I could get an informal sense of if everyone was in agreement that we would like to ask the city council if they would not vote that change in to help protect our money for instructional services going forward, that I would do that on behalf of the entire committee rather than just on behalf of myself or just the finance subcommittee.
Yes, please.
I already
I think that's a good idea.
And I believe our other two members are in agreement as well. Okay. Thank you very much, Dan. Thank you, Mayor Cash.
Thanks.
Okay, moving on to the policy subcommittee.
We're trying to schedule a meeting for May or June, so we will be meeting on some policies that the superintendent wants us to look at.
Okay, very good. And Wendy is not with us this evening, so we do not have a CES update. But we'll move on to the exciting happenings at the high school from Brian Atwater.
Thank you, Ms. Lucia. First, it is important to note that on May 2nd, May 8th, this previous Friday, a fun and safe time was enjoyed by juniors and seniors alike at prom at the Log Cabin in Holyoke. Upcoming are the AP exams, many of which have already happened, but there are still many more to come. The schedules can be found online or with teachers, and hopefully all children who have the opportunity are participating in those exams. Moving on, final events for the year. Final exams for seniors will begin on May 27th and go until the 29th, and the 29th will then be the last day of school for seniors, followed by graduation on June 6th at 7 p.m. at Easthampton High School. And as stated before, by Ms. Follansby, the last day of school for kindergarten through 11th grade will be Wednesday, June 24th.
Unless we have another snow day.
Unless we have another snow day.
No.
It's going to get a little cold tomorrow, dip down to
I
the
know.
60s.
And the
Starting to get
24th is a
nervous.
half day for all grades.
Yes.
Yes. On a personal note, it is proper that I announce that this is my last meeting as student representative on the school committee. Although she was not able to join us tonight due to a prior event, Alexis White has been elected the student council president for next year, and she will hold this position beginning with our next meeting on June 9th. So it has been a wonderful time up here on the committee, and I'd like to thank everybody for making it the experience that it was.
Well, we are very, very grateful to you, Brian, for your service. We could not have had a better student representative, and we are just so grateful for your service and your commitment to this, and we just appreciate you immensely, and we're going to miss you terribly.
Thank you. I'll miss you all as well.
And your
On behalf of the
gratitude.
committee, we'd like to present you with this gift.
Yes.
And we wish you all the best in your year ahead. All the best.
Yeah.
Congratulations on your pending graduation.
Thank you.
And you forgot some of the other activities in there. You have a whole bunch of
Oh
stuff,
yes,
don't
there
you?
are tons of activities if we would like to go into grave detail.
Yeah.
So on May 29th, being the last day of school, is the senior picnic, followed by the senior banquet, and then the senior outing on June 1st to High Meadows in Granby, Connecticut. Senior rehearsal for class night will be June 3rd, followed that night by the senior video, ice cream social, and senior class night. The juniors get to cook us a delectable breakfast on June 4th. As stated, graduation on June 6th, followed by grad night on the night of June 6th. So that is the in-depth schedule. I tried to give the Reader's Digest version.
Can't get away with that.
We're all seniors watching.
Right. Thank you very much, Brian.
Thank you. This has been a wonderful time.
Next, we were going to ask Mayor Cadger if she might want to give us a brief update on her Massachusetts Mayor's Conference.
I'll try to be brief. I just thought that the committee might be interested. I know we've been talking so much, and everybody has been lobbying, whether it's the school committee, the superintendent's association, the mayor's association, but a lot of talk about formulas. The formula report is due to come out in June. I believe it's going to be running a little late, but it is going to come out. So I was at a Mass Municipal Association sponsored event for the Mass Mayors, and we had a lot of really good speakers. One of them was Senate President Stan Rosenberg. And after a lot of discussion about the formulas, you know, I feel a little protective that small communities, even though we're not small, but smaller communities like ourselves and smaller than that, might not make out in a formula. You know, there's always the unknown. So what I had asked the Senate President is, has anybody ever looked at just funding the charter schools separately? You know, they're here, that's perfectly fine. People make a choice for charter or choice, but instead of giving us the 70 and then we pay the funding out, it would just make, so much more sense to me to just give us our 70 and give the charter schools their 70. So the senator felt that was just common sense, which gave me a little bit of hope, and I felt probably the first ray of a little light opening. And this problem is not prevalent in all of the state, which you're aware of. So I believe Central Mass doesn't have the problem at all, or Eastern parts of Eastern. And so the senator also made a comment that not only does it make perfect sense, but most states, I believe Easthampton, Massachusetts is one of the few that does it this way. Most of them do it the other way, so of course it makes sense. I asked him, what can we possibly do to, we're lobbying, and obviously Representative Syback lobbies for us on this, and we deal with our senators, we deal with our representatives, we deal with every committee that we can possibly think of, but what do we need to do to push this forward, and what kind of a timeline are we looking at here? So he said, obviously nothing is fast, which didn't surprise anybody. But he mentioned that this was something that would probably take, a bill would have to be enacted. So as I was discussing it, there were a few other mayors that are hit really hard like we are. There were some that, it hits Northampton the same way it hits us. But so we wanted to talk to him after and say, please, if there's anything that we can do that we're not doing, or any way to initiate this or to start it or to present it, we're in. So he was on board with it, and any updates I get on this at all, so that to me it would be the solution to us. That way, our funding, because what my greatest problem with this, the 70 funds coming to us and then we give them out, we're not giving out what we're getting in, which is what's causing our problem. And I was very, 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 very clear to say that this is crippling, to communities like ours. Mm-hmm. So anyway. Great. I thought you might be interested to know that, as all of you know, we never stop, but we'll continue to keep on lobbying for this.
A message is getting across.
The message is getting across. Just the fact that there's a report on the formula coming out is pretty shocking. I mean, I don't know how many years it took, but it's getting out there. So the message is, all our messages are loud and clear with all the communities that, different things affect different communities, but all the communities that this affects are right on it.
Great.
Okay.
Good news.
I think there's a second side to back you up, Karen. There's the funding side, which is so important, but I know a large circle of friends and neighbors that have children in charter schools. You would think their problem with all of this funding formula, they pressure for fair funding, as they put it, because what it creates this divisiveness amongst families. You want this sense of community. That's the whole purpose of this, is it's supposed to bring us all up. All boats should float at high tide. And instead what it's doing, it's really tearing people apart. People who do enroll their children in charter can be faced with a lot of guilt and ostracism in the community. It just, you're leaving behind these other kids who now have less funding to support their education. It circumvents the whole initial purpose of charter to begin with.
And again, it's not about the schools, it's not about charter, It's not about choice, it's about the process. So, and
just for it to be equitable.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Thank you very much. Okay, moving on to the superintendent's report.
Yes. So I have Andrew Stratton here from Chartwells. He's going to give us an update on our food service program. So Andrew, if you come to the podium, please.
Hi, I'm Andrew Stratton, the Food Service Director for Easthampton Schools as well as Granby Schools. I was hiding in the back because I was collecting myself after coming from a meeting in Connecticut with my direct supervisor is out of Connecticut, so we meet with directors down there to give updates and go over things. I don't know exactly what Andy Paquette went over last week, but I'll give you a general quick overview on finances. The most recent report I gave him had us at a loss, a current loss of about $16,000 $671. And we're projecting out, because a lot of times June, even though it's extended with the snow day makeup, it usually financially for school lunch, you never usually don't make up what you could have had in the winter months, less kids in school, field days. So I had given him a projection of a possible loss of $27,000. April, we did better than we projected, and we were trying to project, medium to low numbers, so Andy wouldn't be surprised. So we had a positive month in April of about $4,000, which brought our negative balance, or our negative profit and loss, down to about $12,000. Again, May, we're waiting to see how we're doing in May. It's not too bad, but depending on cost. So I'm hoping we're in between 20 and 12,000 as a loss for the year. I've been working on, and all of our staff at the schools, working on participation rates. They've dropped somewhat from last year, and we're, trying to meet with the students and interact with parents and get feedback on, a lot of times parents will choose 1 or 2 days during a week, or 3, and some have gone from that and declined slightly. So we're working on that. One of the things I think in your packet I put in some information on a new website. Actually, before I go to that, I didn't mean to gloss over some of the financials. I didn't know if there were questions on any specifics. Like I said, Andy's up to date on things. We're keeping cost in line, but we're really trying to grow participation to cover the cost of the labor and everything else. But if there's any questions on the brief overview I gave you. Some of the things we had tried to do early in the school year, actually during the summer, I went to the high school's in good shape, but Maple and Pepin at the lunch site, and at the 2 cafeterias at Whitebrook, and painted in the areas just to brighten it up a little, give it a little oomph, working with the principals and picking out colors, and it helped liven it up. I think anywhere you're going every single day you sort of get bored with it, but that helps somewhat. We brought in some new equipment into Whitebrook, and are trying to utilize the ovens we had put in last year in the Center Pepin and Maple, utilizing those, giving a fresher product. We've had some ups and downs with that as far as staff and being able to they're not necessarily cooks, but we're trying to have them provide fresher food. So that's been going fairly well. And I sort of I don't want to take too long. I might pass around. It depends. With the new website we developed, Chartwell's partnership with a company called NutriSlice. And we're still going to have our bright menus that are on the websites, and hopefully a lot of parents, including myself, like printing them out, putting them on a refrigerator, and then your son or daughter can pick or choose lunch that week. This new website is an innovative way to give more details to the menu. A lot of times you see something, and if I word it a certain way, it might appeal to the parent but not to the student, and they're going to skip over it on the so this is a way to give more information to both students and parents on the nutrition, carbohydrates. The nurses can go on and print out either for a week or a day specifics on the carbohydrates. It has a part of it you can click onto it and see what allergens might be in a certain day's lunch, and either steer clear of it, or if it's cleared, then with reasonable assurance, you can choose that lunch or contact the office at any time. There's also a translating part of it where you can actually click on and choose a different language. I worked with the school department to find which languages are the most predominant. I think we have 6 or 7 that are available. There's also a so you click on to the website, you choose your school, the high school, middle school, you go on, and it'll have the week's menu, and usually the next 2 weeks you can look, you can hover or click over a menu item. It'll give you the calories, fat, saturated fats. They're all trans fat free, so those will be zeros. Carbohydrates, I'm probably missing something, but it gives you a fairly good detail on that. This came about, we use a company-wide program called Webtrition, where I go in and I take our district menu, which is fairly different from even Granby. Just we try to suit the needs of the district. I find our recipes and create a menu on the software. I print production records and recipes for our staff, and now this is connected to NutriSlice, where parents can go on and get updated information. And I can make changes in it if something doesn't come in on a delivery truck in the morning, and change it on the NutriSlice website, so parents can still look and see. I can even email, say there's a specific issue that might, students might be unhappy with the change. I can let the offices know ahead of time that either parents or people can go on and double check what's on the menu. There's also a web app where students, parents can go on to either their iPhone store or App Store or the Google App Store. They can upload the app. It's free, and it's fairly simple to use. I've been playing with it and updating and double checking our menu, or what I've been putting into it. But this is the home page to it. And I can just pass that down so you can see or look at it. So we're hoping it's a tool for parents to be reassured on the products we're using, and especially for the nurses, or we print or post the website in English. You can change the language, and hopefully that's more convenient for if some of the students have a parent who it's not as easy doing that. They can print out a different language. I had gone over and sort of had a soft launch on the website with the principals and the nurses. Got fairly good feedback, and I'm hoping it's more or less set to go. I'm going to put things on the website and maybe have an all-call done so people can explore it and look at it. It's fairly simple. It's I wrote it down. It's easthampton.nutrislice.com, and it's easy, and I wouldn't say it's fun, but it makes it a little more interesting to look at the school lunch menu. And like I said, I'll still have the paper menu that we usually have, or you can download it from the website if people are more comfortable with that. Just another follow-up, we've been working with the school garden program with the school sprouts. In the fall, we were able to provide a lot of the produce they had raised from the gardens. We're working with the teachers, Gabby and somebody in Hope, and they had asked what we could use or utilize in the cafeterias more. So there's not a lot they'll have ready this spring, but we're hoping some herbs or some other things or some lettuces we can highlight in the cafeteria cafeterias, and then we have a, thank you. We're getting together a plan for the fall. I was hoping to have some samples tonight, but we're part of a program where some of the district's commodity dollars we can put towards a new Department of Defense fresh program. So as opposed to, you know, getting canned fruit or something for the district, we put a certain amount towards this new program, and I've been holding on to some of the dollars, and we get fresh. It's not always local. The company's out of Rhode Island who transports it, but it's fresh produce at a very reduced cost because of the commodity program. And I believe tomorrow, if not Thursday, we're getting some strawberries and some other spring lettuce and things like that that isn't on the menu, but we're going to have in the cafeterias. I'm sure the kids will be happy to see strawberries. Again, they're not local, but hopefully the kids will enjoy them. So that's more or less my overview, but please let me know if you have questions.
My son loves the garden salad on Wednesdays. He will not eat school lunch. That was like I will not eat school lunch. And now that they have the garden every Wednesday, and we've even graduated to French toast sticks. So, you know, he draws the line, but it's fun. So I think, like, you know, hopefully we spread the word, and every kid that likes it just...
We're always trying to do something different. We can't please everybody.
No.
As those with kids at home know, it's hard to do, but try to change the menu enough so we, you know, capture different likes, dislikes. You know, sometimes you don't please the parent, but the student's happy, and we're trying to hit a good ground of providing nutritious meals at a fairly good price, and marketing and highlighting it is something that's not my strong suit. My background's culinary and nutrition, and I'm hoping to you know, provide more pictures and get more information out for parents, and even invite them in the fall either to breakfast or lunch so they can see what the students are having. The new salads at the elementary schools, we had been doing other cold things, and we had tried once or twice to do a salad and didn't go over great, so we tried it again, and on Wednesdays they can order a fresh salad with low-fat cheese and a whole grain roll, and it's going fairly well. We got teachers on board, they're ordering them, so that's good. I think that helped April somewhat, and depending on, because our main facility is at Whitebrook, sometimes it's hard to provide some of those things, but we're going to try to expand it to another day, maybe do it on Tuesdays and Thursdays, especially in the spring, where people, now that it's finally spring, can start, you know, with the salads and less macaroni and cheese and that kind of thing. Did you have a...
Do you do student surveys? Do you?
Yes, I had
Especially like
one.
the older ones. Do you do that?
I have one, and I was ready to set it up and have it done, and it kept getting pushed back. I thought about doing it in May, and I might do it anyway just to get some feedback. A lot of times I do impromptu surveys with some of the students in either the breakfast programs, and where there's a little more time, a little less chaos, and get better interaction. And I try to meet with some of the student groups. I've met with the Whitebrook Student Senate and some other groups and got some feedback that way. But I do have one ready to go that I just need to find time to get it out to parents and to students to get more feedback, and that'll help us for the fall.
And I know, Andrew, you've done surveys in the past.
Yes, and they're fairly good, but it does help us, you know, find better ways of doing things.
Are the Sprouts at Whitebrook?
Yeah, the group, they have a curriculum, and they actually were, and at Center, Pepin, and Maple, and bring the students out. They have a specific program that they go over with the students, and they've been out tilling the soil and things with student groups. It's great to see. Again, I need to get out there with a camera and get more, because when they bring the produce into the kitchen, you know, and they're really proud of what we're doing in the fall. So it's a nice, and then to have them see it and share it with their friends who have either helped or not helped. It's been a good program there.
I'm just curious, are you able to monitor what's better selling than other things? Like, I don't know how specific your information is in terms of your sales for food items, but I was just wondering, are you able to monitor via sales which food items are more popular than others?
Yeah, and I try, for the most part, you're talking lunch sales or a la carte things. It's
Yeah, a la
mostly
carte
lunch sales that I focus on. And a lot of times, and it's hard because some parents or teachers are say it's all chicken and cheese, and that's really what the kids like. We try to do different, we've done a beef stew or meatloaf or other things, or even the whole grain pasta we're still trying to find a solution for, but you know, different chicken items, but we try to balance it out so they're not back to back or too many within a certain week. But you know, chicken nuggets or tacos go well. We usually do those with beef, either in a hard shell or a soft shell. But it depends on the age group as well. The high school students we do paninis and other things. They have a lot more variety, so sometimes it's harder to pin down exactly what they're, other than working with Mary Ann, the manager there, and they'll change during the year, and each year it's sort of different when new students come in. At White Brook, it's been good because both Teresa and Jasara try to make a lot of the salads and some of the wraps with more different vegetables and even shredded beets in the salad and other things, and the kids have been more and more open to that, trying certain things that the elementary schools, sometimes it's hard. Whenever you add another color or vegetable to something, students tend to pull away from it, even on a veggie pizza. You know, if you add broccoli or red onion as opposed to something else, somebody might not like it. So we're, like I said, each year it's a little different, but we're trying on a daily basis and then monthly adjust the menu to suit those needs.
Nice. Lori?
I'd love to ask Brian your feedback. Do you get school lunches?
I do, every day.
And do you have a favorite?
I have to say that the taco bar is my favorite.
I figured that.
I will go on the school website and check the menu and just plan out when taco day is. So I just know that I can be a little happier that day.
Good. And we have made some recent changes to the high school on a visit from a couple people from Chartwell's. They were trying to think of ways to enhancing what we had there. So we had moved one of our main lunch stations and opened up or moved their pizza station and opened up a new pasta bar station, and it had been a little confusing for people going which way and a little bumping, but a lot of the students or the older students at times will say, well, there's not enough in a USDA lunch, and sometimes, well, if they don't have the milk and the fruit and the veg and most of the components, they can be hungry afterwards. But the pasta, they seem happy with that because it's they can fill up their bowl a little. It's a self-serve station, so they can't go crazy with it. But it's another option that they've been happy with. Recently, we opened it up at the end of April.
Is there any one school in the district in particular where you'd like to see the enrollment in the lunch program boosted? Is there any, like a weaker link or one?
Well, it depends. Certain time, White Brook's been the strongest lately. The high school dipped slightly. Maple's been pretty consistent. Center Pepin, depending. So we're working on some things there. All the schools, we're always trying to grow the breakfast participation. A lot of times, you know, if students have it at home and they're in good shape with that, that's great, but it's convenient to have it at school so they're ready for school and classes and awake. And we're working on some different ideas with Pepin being the serving area. Some of the students from Center either don't take the time or don't, it's not convenient for them. So we're trying to work on some solutions there.
How does the breakfast program work? When I grew up, that was like strictly for like free and reduced lunch kids.
And that's not the case, and sometimes it got a stigmatism as that, as just for, and that's why sometimes the breakfast programs lag behind the lunch program, but it's basically the same nutrition program, just a different meal period. We have guidelines for it as far as whole grains and fruits and what we provide for it, and students on the free or reduce program do either have free or 30 cents for reduce, and it's $1.25 for paid students, but we have a fairly good balance of that within the district, and it sways slightly towards the free and reduce, but the high school and White Brook, a lot of times it depends on the bus schedule. Sometimes if they're later, the students don't have time for it. A lot of times the elementary schools, the students are having breakfast at home with their parents. It's more convenient sometimes than for what the older students, if they make time for it. And that's, you know, but we've, even last year we worked, the school put in we did a breakfast video contest the state runs in Project Bread and trying to emphasize breakfast, and a lot of students in the IT classes at the high school did videos. We worked with them, gave them access to the fruits and vegetables and things, and one of the videos, actually, I forget whether it was second or first place, and we've been trying to run that at times in the high school, and it's still about, out of the 400 plus students at the high school, only about 20 get breakfast on a regular basis. So we're trying to think of ways to make it more convenient, or get students either into the serving area or even do a kiosk kind of thing where they're hanging out in near the front door, or something like that. So we're trying to just give the opportunity to parents and students who want to have a complete breakfast before school and start off the day well. So we're trying to get the message out more and more.
I'll talk to you more later, because I think the PTO could help with that, could help promote that. I don't think most people understand that that's an option across the board for all students, and when I'm doing my kid would eat a second breakfast because he's really hungry by the time he gets to lunch, so I'm sure there are families who don't even realize that could take advantage of it.
Be great.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And next we have Joan Schaefer, our math specialist at the elementary level, and she's going to be giving us a little presentation on our elementary math program. And I think you have copies of her PowerPoint slides here.
Actually, it's not all the slides, but there's a few handouts that I think you'll find handy to refer to when I'm going through my PowerPoint. Let's see.
I already like this. There's something elementary.
Okay. Seems to be. So it was a surprise when Nancy asked me to come and speak with you, but it really is my pleasure to do so. I'm pretty passionate about the work of elementary mathematics, and I love the opportunity to come and share with you some of the challenges that we have and how we're trying to meet them. So I start by saying that elementary mathematics is not elementary at all. And I think I'm going to prove that to you tonight. A lot of people say, oh, it's just arithmetic. And And when I went to school, a lot of it actually was just arithmetic, but that's just not the case now. So I want to start, this is a quote taken directly from our state frameworks. It's one of the guiding, it's the first guiding principle. The mathematical ideas should be explored in ways that stimulate curiosity, create enjoyment of mathematics, and develop depth of understanding. It's sort of my guiding principle, and I just wanted to be aware. So I want to start by just saying that we are in a landscape of very changing expectations where it comes to math. And just to give you a few examples of that. Okay. When I went to school, we focused mostly on procedural knowledge. How do you add, subtract, multiply, and divide? But now we are really working with standards that are very conceptual. So if you take a look at the problem on the right, I think most of us could do that without any problem. But if you take a look at the problem on the left, using these digits make 2 3-digit numbers that when added together have a sum between 800 and 1,000. I think any of us would have to think a little bit about that. And also we'd have to know something about place value in numbers. We'd have to know something about estimation. So it's much more of a complex task than arithmetic. So this is a sample item from an old math test. This is how it used to be very straightforward. A bus holds 65 people. How many people do 8 buses hold? You perform an operation, hopefully the right one, and you know. So let's take a look at, this is actually on the park website. This is a sample, and you have this problem in your packet. The last page has 2 park problems, one on each side, and if we have a chance, if we have enough time, maybe we'll play with these. But here we have 3 classes, and those are listed in the table, that are going on a field trip. The table shows the number of people in each class. They can choose buses, vans, and cars. And the student, and it tells how many seats each vehicle has. And the student has to choose which 3 combinations can be used to take all 3 classes on the field trip. Okay? So we have a multi-step problem here. We have a very deep level of analysis of each of the possible answers. And we are not just trying to choose one answer. We have to find 3 out of that group. So,
What grade, Joan, for something like this?
3rd.
Wow.
This is 3rd grade. I was going to ask you to guess.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's okay. I'm blowing up your spot. Oh, I'm sorry.
But, yeah, I mean, if it was a 4-part multiple choice, typical multiple choice, the child has 25% chance of choosing the right answer. But the chances of choosing the 3 correct answers are just a little bit less. So here's a 4th grade sample. The side of a square is 20 feet. What's the area of the square? Again, very straightforward. Here's a perimeter question. Now take a look at this one. The perimeter of the rectangular state park is shown as 42 miles. Okay, so the ranger estimates that there are 9 deer in each square mile of the park. If this estimate is correct, how many total deer are in the park? Explain your answer using numbers, symbols, and words. Okay, so what do you notice about that? Any noticings about that question?
The length of the park is missing.
Pardon?
You need to figure out the length of the park.
You have to, okay, so you have to start by figuring out the length.
I feel like I'm back in
We're going to count on you to answer all of these.
Yeah.
So what about the answer? It says if you're supposed to estimate, first of all, it doesn't ask for an exact answer, it asks for an estimate. How many total deer are in the park? Explain your answer using numbers, symbols, and words. Okay, so there's...
By symbols? I'm not really understanding.
Well, symbols might be addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, greater than, less than, those kind, mathematical symbols and words. So just wanted to start out by showing you how the expectations are changing. That's 4th grade. So now I'd like to show you I'd like to get you into our new state standards and to show you a few of the standards so that you understand how specific they are and how and the kinds of details they have. There are 2 math types of math standards. They're the content standards, which tells you what you're going to teach. You know, when are you going to teach equivalent fractions, and when are you going to teach area and perimeter, okay? Then there's the mathematical practices, and the mathematical practices talk about how we expect students to work with mathematics. So let's just take a look. This is a content standard. This is, the K stands for kindergarten. The OA stands for operations and algebraic thinking. So our kindergartners are working with operations and they're working with algebraic thinking. So this comes under a subheading that has to do with understanding addition as putting together and adding to, and understanding subtraction as taking apart and taking from. So the specific standard is, for any number 1 to 9, find the number that makes 10 when added to the given number, e.g. by using objects or drawings, and record the answer with a drawing or equation. This is a kindergarten standard. So in other words, if I say 4, you've got to come up with what? 6, right? Okay. So I just wanted you to notice that this is algebra. You're finding a missing value, okay, in a number. It's not saying what is 3 plus 2. It's very different. This is a different kind of thinking. So let's look at another standard.
The language.
And what would be the drawing or the equation with that?
So a child might write,
How would they know it?
a child might write 4.
No, they don't, that's not written to a kindergartner, that's a standard, so a teacher needs to be able to assess.
This is our,
if a kid
the
can
teacher,
demonstrate
this
that.
is,
Yeah.
this is the standards that are written for the teachers to tell them what they're supposed to teach in kindergarten. So, so a child might just draw, the 4, and then might draw 6 more, so that might be how they represent it. They might write 4 plus 6 equals 10, it depending on the child's level. I'm just wondering, oh, there we go. Okay, so here's a 3rd grade content standard. Also operations and algebraic thinking. And this one involves multiplication and division. And again, the underlining is my underlining. It's not in the standard, but it's the piece I want you to think about. Use multiplication and division within 100 to solve word problems in situations involving equal groups, arrays, and measurement quantities, e.g. by using drawings and equations with a symbol for the unknown number to represent the problem.
What symbol do they use? Do they use X and Y?
Letter variables are introduced in 3rd grade.
Wow.
Our kindergarten, 1st, and 2nd graders use what we call a mystery box. They use an empty box to note an unknown value. And we introduce the letters in 3rd grade. So again, you can see that. And also, what else do you notice that I've underlined? Besides the symbol for the unknown number, the fact that they have to produce, they not only have to solve the word problem, but they have to produce a drawing that represents it or an equation. Okay, so an answer is not enough. I think that's the piece I'm trying to... Okay, one more. Numbers and operations fractions. This is 4th grade. Okay, and the part I underlined is right up front. This has to do with fraction equivalence and ordering. Explain why a fraction, a over b, is equivalent to a fraction n times a over n times b by using visual fraction models with attention to how the numbers and sizes of the parts differ, even though the two fractions themselves are the same size. Use this principle to recognize and generate equivalent fractions. So, what do you notice? It says explain. You have to explain. It's not that they're asking you just to generate equivalent fractions. They're asking you to explain why it works. Why when you multiply the numerator and denominator by the same number, why does it generate? And to be able to show it with a model. So these are our content standards. Very specific. They tell us not only what the child needs to be able to do, but how they need to show that they understand it. Okay, standard for math practices. These describe the varieties of expertise that mathematics educators should seek to develop in their students. So this is not what the teachers are supposed to be doing, it's what they're supposed to get the students to do. I have given you the 2nd page of your handout. You have a list of all of these math practices. sort of in a friendly, now each one of these has a lengthy paragraph in the standards. They go into great detail to describe them. But briefly, make sense of problems and persevere in solving them. So the idea is that you shouldn't read a problem and immediately know the answer. They're setting up the students to understand that problems can be complex, and you actually shouldn't jump into solving them. You should take some time and try to understand what the situation is before you attempt to solve it. And that it might not be easy. You may just have to really work at it. Okay, you may have to struggle a little bit. That's okay. Then the second one, to reason abstractly and quantitatively, to really be able to reason. The third one, construct viable arguments and critique the reasoning of others. So mathematics is about debate and talking, sharing, how you go about this. I'm sure that you've probably seen this in class. Presenting your solutions and listening to other people, so present theirs. So going on to number 4, model with mathematics. I'm going to be showing you a bunch of models using tools, attend to precision. Obviously, we do want to get answers, and sometimes they do have to be exact answers. And attending to precision is also this awareness of what you're doing. And so that when you produce an answer that has absolutely no reason, that's totally unreasonable, that you're aware that this can't be right. Look for and make use of structure is one of my favorites. It's really trying to understand that there are things you can depend on in mathematics, that it isn't hocus pocus, that there's a logical sequence, that there's a code that has a lot of repetition, and the last math practice, seeing that there's regularity and repeated reasoning. So these things are your how we learn math. So now I want to talk a little bit about how we try to meet these standards. With right now our primary resource is Math Expressions Program. And actually, I was looking back at the history, and we have been in full implementation of this program for 4 years now. And then the year before that, we piloted 1 grade level. So our current 4th graders have had this program since 1st grade. When we chose this program, we had a committee. We looked at 5 programs. Nancy actually chaired the committee. And we were very impressed with certain aspects of this program that I'm going to show you now. The standards, the Massachusetts version of the Common Core Standards came out in 2011. And our first year of full implementation, I believe, was, I wrote it down, it was, well, it was 2011. The year before that, we piloted 1 grade level. And what was really kind of fortuitous is mathematically, even though every content area wasn't aligned to the new frameworks or to the new Common Core, the mathematics in the program was very consistent with the approach, with the structures that were in the Common Core. So in 2011, we were already at it. We didn't have to play catch up. I am in touch with school districts that are looking for programs right now, and this is a program that they're considering, but we were there. So some of the structures that support the content standards and the mathematical practices that are in the Math Expressions Program. The first one is an emphasis on algebraic thinking. The second is the use of visual drawings and models. The third is a plethora of complex problem solving. And the fourth is an emphasis on communication, oral communication and written communication, of it being, explaining mathematical ideas and explaining problem solutions. So I mentioned the mystery box. So there's our mystery box, and that is very typical of 1st grade. This is probably very typical of 2nd grade. Moving on to 3rd grade, and then substituting with a letter variable. We want students to understand that the equal sign is not an announcement that an answer is coming. It actually means that whatever you have on the right side is going to be equivalent to what's on the left side. And so the students have problems like this. And then the last one I pulled right out of a 4th grade book. So that is a equation that they have to solve. Okay, this is our puzzled penguin. Poor puzzled penguin is so confused. He really doesn't get math very well. And the kids have to straighten him out all the time. This is from 1st grade. So puzzled penguin has this problem, 2 plus something is 8. And poor puzzled penguin just looks at that 2 and that 8 and throws the 10 into the mystery box. And we have to help puzzled penguin. And so this, in that box, using drawings or using words, our 1st graders would try to explain to puzzled penguin why that doesn't work, and then they would do it the right way. So the puzzled penguin is throughout the program, and I just want to say that I was doing the park test in March with a special needs student, and the park is full of questions, especially the performance-based assessment, where they show a wrong solution and the children have to say what's wrong with it and explain how to do it the right way. So our puzzled penguin is working on that. So this is just an example of a park 3rd grade fluency. Again, click on all the equations that are true. They're not telling you how many. There's a lot of analysis, there's a lot of work that has to be done. It's so tempting to just mark a few of those boxes. There's also this habit of mind, like how do we get kids to do all the work and actually figure out and which equations are balanced or not. That's a challenge. So now I'd like to move on to the second thing I mentioned about the program, and that is the drawings and the visual representations. So these are from, I think, kindergarten. And if you look at the number line on the top, I don't know if you can see, but there's little red dots that represent the numbers. And as soon as you get to 5, they start a 2nd row. And this visual representation of 6 through 10 is kind of filling in that 2 by 5 matrix is something that really the kids start to internalize. And they actually have a poem. If you look at where the fingers are, it says 5 in a row and 3 below. They have like a poem. It's 5 crows in a row and 3 below, how many crows? And they really start, and plus they're learning those math facts. They're learning all the 5 plus facts. And the stair steps are another visual tool we use in kindergarten and 1st grade. If you look at the 8 with the circles next to it, they're representing 8. Later we use representations like that for doing something like adding 8 plus 8. Instead of starting, young children tend to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then they count again, 9, 10, 11, 12. We say, okay, you already have 8, so then you can count on and you can write the 8 and do circles. So this is a very famous part of the Math Expressions program, the Math Mountain. The Math Mountain starts in kindergarten. It's a model for helping children understand the relationship between addition and subtraction. So the total goes on the top, and the 2 parts go below. In kindergarten, the children learn a story about all these rocks on top of the mountain, and some of them fall down one side, and some of them fall down the other side. And, they started with 15 at the top, but some of them went down the right, and some of them went down the left. And in kindergarten and also in 1st grade, a lot of times the kids draw what they call the tiny tumblers down the side. So they use this, it's a graphic organizer that they use when they're solving word problems to actually think about the numbers that are in the problem, and where they go. Do I have a total, or am I looking for the total? Because when I went to school, usually I got a whole page of addition problems, and I didn't even have to read the problems. It said addition problems, so I just added the numbers. But the problems that these kids have, they're all different. Some of them might be addition, some of them might be addition with an unknown part, with an unknown add-end. So there were 9 children playing in the park. Some more children came. Now there are 15 children playing. How many children came to the park? So hopefully the child's going to realize that 15 is the total, and they write an equation, 9 plus mystery box equals 15, and then they might solve it by subtracting 15, take away 9. But that first equation is something we call a situation equation, because it mirrors the situation. It goes in the same order. First there were 9 children, and then 9 goes first. Then sum came, and our first graders kind of know that sum usually means we don't know what that number is. So this is a very useful model. It changes, in 3rd grade it becomes a break-apart drawing, but they can use it all the way through to 4th grade. This is a model that's used for multi-digit multiplication in 4th grade, for multiplying 67 times 43, where students are breaking the 67 into a 60 plus 7, and the 43 into a 40 plus 3, and they take it in parts. So it's this idea that you can break numbers apart, and you can perform smaller calculations, and then you can put those numbers together to get your total. I don't know if any of you ever learned how to multiply this way, but for a lot of children, it not only makes it meaningful for them, instead of just trying to memorize steps, but it also teaches them the distributive property, which is a hard property to learn. So just going back to my slide, we talked about the emphasis on algebra. We've talked about the visual drawings and the models. So I'm just going to do a little bit about complex problem solving. The program asks kids to solve problems using 4 steps. And the first step, we put a lot of emphasis on: understand the situation, restate the problem. So a lot of times we'll ask the children to say the problem in their own words, or to try to imagine themselves in the bowling alley or the ice cream store, or wherever the problem takes place. Then the second step is to represent the situation with some kind of a drawing, or if they're comfortable, to go right to an equation. Whenever they write equations, we ask them to show in the equation where the unknown is. So they're going to have a mystery. Even if they know what goes in that box, they still write the box. So all of that before they actually solve it. So many kids want to go right to the answer. And this is really asking them to really think about it. And then the last step, to check and make sure the answer makes sense. That's a tough one. It's really hard to get kids to, they're done. So here's an example, 2nd grade, and they're using some of these models to solve some problems. The first one is a comparison problem. Amanda has 22 more colored pencils than Troy. Troy has 38 colored pencils. How many colored pencils does Amanda have? So these are called comparison bars. So the A stands for Amanda and the T stands for Troy. And we know that Amanda has more, so we give her a big bar. And we know that Troy has less, so he gets a little bar. And that circle, which is supposed to be like an oval, is the difference between the two. And in this problem, he knows the smaller amount, so that gets filled in. And that 22, what is that? Well, that's the difference. That's how many more. And then from there, he's able to write an equation and solve the problem. These kind of problems are really hard for kids to know whether to add or subtract. And again, the comparison bars, and that's right out of Singapore. I mean, it came from the Singapore math models the kids use. And then the second problem, you can see they're using a math mountain. The student's using a math mountain, and from there going to an equation. In this one, he's noted that the 14 is the unknown number. So that just gives you an idea of what it looks like when the kids are using these. The last thing I want to talk about is what we call math talk, and this is the communication part. So the NCTM is the National Council of Teachers of Mathematics Association. Students learn mathematics best when they're given opportunities to speak about the mathematics using the language of mathematics. There's a lot of heavy vocabulary in math, and they're words that kids don't use all the time, and this gives them a chance to rehearse them and to Oftentimes, we'll put a list of words on the board when we're doing a math talk and encourage the kids to try to use those words. It helps our English language learners to hear it. So Math Practice 3, which you have on your math practices, is about constructing viable arguments and critiquing the reasoning of others. So this is working on that math practice. And what can we talk about? Well, we do sometimes computation, we'll just put up a computation problem and ask the kids to perform mental math, to just do it in their head. And then they explain how they did it, we write it all down, and the kids can see that there's more than one way to solve a problem. And they can also see that somebody else is using a much more efficient strategy than they are. So maybe the next time they're going to try that strategy. So it gets math out of this isolation that it's been in for years, where everybody's doing their own work all the time. The kids are learning from each other. We use math talk sometimes to unpack complex problems. Some problems just have so much information. It's very dense text. Math problems are very dense text. So sometimes the teacher will, do a math talk where, what do you know? What is the problem telling you? And you just spend a lot of time really modeling what we want the kids to do all by themselves. You can also work on specific vocabulary, and you can also share problem-solving strategies. So this didn't come out very well, but I did a number talk in a classroom, 15 minus 7. This is a second grade, and only about a third of my poster came out when I loaded it in here. But you can see that one child said, well, I know 7 plus 8 is 15, so 15 minus 7 has to be 8. And on the other side, you can see it's kind of cut off, but the child took the 7 and broke it into a 5 and a 2. Well, I know 15 take away 5 is 10, so 10 take away 2 more is 8. So you can see, you want me to go back over that? So I'm sorry that it got cut off, but that they sort of made a math mountain under the 7.
That's like, what an incredibly complex way for a child's brain to work to get to that. Like, you realize that everybody approaches it differently, uniquely.
Breaking it down.
Yeah.
Well, there have been analysis done that say that really, as adults, about 90% of the math we do is mental math. So it is nice to be able to work with numbers, and I'm sure you all have your own strategies for dealing with numbers. So that's a math talk. So the last part of this, I have those 2 problems there, and this is another. It's a protocol that came from the program. So let's say that they were doing that problem with the vans, and the truck, and the cars, and the buses. The children would have some time to solve the problem, and then the teacher would, walk around and watch the kids solving the problem and choose some kids pointedly who they would like to have share with the class. And we try to create communities in the classroom where kids can take risks, where it's okay to make a mistake, where we all learn from mistakes. It's so important to do that. And so she might even choose somebody, And so the child will present their work, and and it's funny, the kids are learning language for this. Someone will say, well, and they get a chance to ask questions of the student who's presenting. Well, I respectfully disagree, or I respectfully agree, or why did you do it that way? Why did you break that 7 into a 5 and a 2? So they ask questions, and then the student can respond. So there's some really good conversation, and we love our dock cameras because they allow kids to just throw their work, and it gets projected, and everyone can see it. So it's really quite. So now I'm just back to these last 2 problems, and it's a big challenge. When the Common Core first came in 2011, did a number of professional development workshops where we traced strands vertically, K-5. We looked at the Math Expressions program, and we've had staff turnover since then. So there's always more professional development. Our elementary teachers teach many subjects. They're not just focused on math. which is where I try to help. But, so, any questions?
I guess, can you talk a little bit about your role in the elementary schools and kind of what support you lend and what your focus is?
Well, I try to do what's called embedded professional development. So I spend time in classrooms, and I do it differently. Sometimes I actually go in and I actually teach, and sometimes I go in and kind of co-teach. Sometimes I just go in and ask like a question to try to deepen the conversation. I do at times work with students when I'm in the classroom who might be struggling or else need a challenge. I do a lot of work with curriculum, because even though this program is, quote, aligned, no program is perfect, and sometimes we need to, I work with the assessment system. We try to keep really close data on the students for each unit. I look at that data. I talk with teachers about their data. I do professional development, meet with grade level teams. We preview units. We debrief units. Those are some of the activities that I do.
I have more, but if somebody else wants to turn. Okay. I'm curious, as a parent of an elementary student, what sort of supports would be most helpful to gain more success? I feel when I sit with my son and do this homework that I wasn't instructed these ways. Right. And I worry when I'm helping him that I may be undoing a lot of what he was learning in the classroom, because your default is how you were instructed as a child. So I'm wondering, like, and I don't want to continue to overburden the classroom teachers. I'm wondering if we can maybe try to find some way where it's accessible for parents, but it's not another additional burden on staff to try to find some way to meet in the middle to help us better support students, and try to learn these methods. And I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
Well, the program has parent letters. I don't know if you've seen those that come home.
Worksheets.
And they kind of give examples and explain it. We've done a number of different kinds of outreach to parents, but probably not enough. I find that if I have a program that's just for parents and it doesn't involve students, I get a low turnout.
Yeah.
I have tried having coffees like in the morning after drop-off, or in the evening. The programs that we've had in the past, and we not this year, but we usually do get quite a bit of people, but it's not, and it's fun because the kids are doing math with their parents, and usually we make it, game-oriented, but I'm still not quite able to get the kind of message. Somebody had suggested to me that I make some videos, or I'd like to make more online resources. There is a website that goes with the program that we might be able to have parents access that would explain. I know that there are some resources there, but I also would be interested in in working with the PTO if they have ideas on how this could better be done.
We're trying to figure out what that volunteer structure should look like, and I think that a big part of that would be some sort of tutoring or support and that kind of interaction between parents, because what we're again, it's this. I agree. I was very suspicious of Common Core because it looks like an alien language to us. When you break it down, it does make more sense. It does, I have a really passing friendship with, because I didn't understand it in depth, and I think my son has a better conceptual understanding. But the challenge is supporting them at home, when we don't maybe have access to that ourselves. Embarrassing as that
So
would be.
I'd be really interested, to talk about how we, when is it convenient, and we also have the two different complexes, and if we did something, let's say for second grade parents, at Maple, would everybody come? And, those are the kinds of questions that we have.
And maybe grandparents.
Yeah, we also, I mean, I know it's a sad story, but we used to actually have a budget for these kind of programs, and we just don't anymore. And the teachers do so much, it's hard to ask them, it is hard to ask them to keep coming out at night.
And we have to recognize too, we live in a largely working class community, and most families are two parents working. If this, and it's so trying to find a time where it's
Well, one of the things that I've been talking with Kathy Lynch about is doing some little videos about things that are going on in the district, and this might be a perfect example of something that could be very useful for parents. You could do little TED Talks on different aspects of math.
Or who was that little penguin that had problems?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, puzzle. Well, our fourth graders call him the perpetually puzzled.
well now.
Get our vocabulary in there,
There
too.
you go. Math and language.
Lori?
So I just want to thank you for all that you do for our district, because this is incredible, and I thank you for coming to present this to us too. And I know you've been with us for so long. I can't imagine what you've gone through from when you first started in this to something like this. I'm
3
like,
sets of standards, yeah.
yeah.
Now how was that for you?
Changes.
Well, it's really, I don't know quite how to answer that. It's interesting. I think that the Common Core standards are not perfect, but I think that they really do make us all focus on understanding. And as our international assessments have shown, we really do need more math literate population. I think there's a lot of math anxiety in our culture, and it really gets me kind of angry that it's like okay to say I suck at math. I mean, when I hear that, it just makes me shudder, because so many careers, I mean, just listening to you talk tonight before my presentation, listening to Andrew, are tied to math. And also there's some great research now that really shows that that everyone can learn math, that our brains actually grow and they reconnect, and the more we challenge them. And if you're interested, if you Google growth mindset, you'll see some really interesting TED Talks and some really interesting videos about that. It's growth mindset, and I think we need to send that message to kids that you can all learn math. And it's not a question, like Einstein said. He said, "Don't worry about your problems with math. No one has more problems than I do." So everyone eventually is going to hit a wall, and it's really what you do when you hit that wall that will spell success or failure. So
I have to tell you that I went to one of your parent workshops about 11 years ago at the elementary school. It was a morning session, and that message that you just shared was on a handout, and I thought it was just revolutionary to me.
So positive.
The point made on it, and I still have this piece of paper. The kids have these school drawers, and every year I transfer. I don't throw it away. Every year I put it in the next drawer because it's a constant reminder. I've quoted from that paper so many times over the years about your message about no one is necessarily good at math. No one is. It's all about perseverance, and it's the people that persevere that are successful in math. So it's all about perseverance. It's the matter of to keep at it. And so everyone hits a wall somewhere, and then it's those that can keep at it are the ones that are successful, and that it's all about perseverance. And I just thought that was such an amazing concept to really embrace, and I don't know, I just wanted you to know. It's stuck with me all these years. I've shared it a million times, and I've shared it with other math teachers from other schools, because I just thought it was so helpful. Anyway.
And I just want to remind everyone that Joan Schaefer is one of our Pioneer Excellence in Teaching Award winners this year. And you know why now, don't you?
Absolutely.
Joan's been a gifted teacher and has just been an amazing advocate for students and for mathematics in our district. Proud to have you here, Joan.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
it's a great.
Okay, moving on to our matters for action. We have some minutes we need to approve.
Yeah, motion to approve the minutes from the school committee meeting on April 28th, 2015.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion to approve the school payroll dated May 14th, 2015 in the amount of $454,749.95.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Abstentions?
Motion to approve the accounts payable authorization for payment dated May 14th, 2015 in the amount of $360,077.89.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. Motion to approve the out-of-state field trip request, or do we want to discuss first? What do you think? I read them before the meeting, or when I was sitting here.
We just outline what it is.
Okay. Do you want me to read the purpose?
Or where to? For whom?
Motion to approve the out-of-state field trip request for the Easthampton High School students to the Mashantucket Pequot Museum in Connecticut.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion to approve the out-of-state field trip request for Maple School students, grades K through 3, to the Connecticut Science Museum.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I should write that down. Is that last item something you want to talk about?
Certainly, I can explain that. So there's a request here for, in addition to the Easthampton High School Program of Studies, a special education program, we have identified a cohort of students from 8th grade who require a program that focuses on building specific strategies and skills in order to access the curriculum. So we've added these courses for special education students at the high school this year to the already existing and approved program of studies. So we need your approval to add these courses to the program of studies.
Any questions? Discussion?
Motion to approve the requested addition to the Easthampton High School Program of Studies and Special Education Program.
Second?
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you very much.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?